All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. And today I am joined by Darren Jakes, the one, the only D from D's Reviews. One of the first people that I really, while I was starting to get serious about YouTube, I would sit there on my lunch breaks and watch all of his Walking Dead reviews and then everything else that came after it. And I pretty much there's a few people out there that I really respect and try to strive to be like, and D is one of them. And so I'm really happy to be here talking to him about The Expanse season 4. Two people that really like this show, and I know he's done other videos with other people. And we're 2 months and some change past when it dropped. Everybody should have had a chance to watch it, unless you're just really waiting for it all to be done and then binge watch it all, because you'll have that option on Amazon now. But I already reviewed all the episodes. It took me a while, but now that it's done and we've had time and we both got time to do it, I really wanted to talk about how we really felt about everything season 4. We're not going to do any like best episode or worst episode, but we are going to talk probably about some best moments, least favorite moments, characters, plot, production. What do we think of the season overall? What do we think about the future of the show? And yeah, we're going to do a free flow thing. So if you know my channel, we're going to try to keep it structured, but I might go off on tangents once in a while, but we'll see. So D.
Hi! Oh, Rob, wow, thanks for having me on. What an intro, man. You're going to get me all like red-faced and teared up. That means so much because, I kind of came in the same way. It was just I wanted to talk about shows. I wanted to dive in. I had no idea what I was doing. And, it takes a thing about just setting up a camera and just jumping in and going, hey, if I fall flat on my face, fine, and I'll pick myself and keep going. And it's, I've always found it just so rewarding. And I've gotten to meet people like you, and I've gotten Mark over in Enchantment Eternity, and, a few other a few other people that I've been blessed to have a chance to work with. So yeah, I'm stoked to be on here with you. I'm really glad I get to be here with your like first big double group discussion live stream. That's really kind of exciting. So thanks so much for having me on here, and I'm really excited to jump back through the ring gates and head back out to Ellis and dive back into Expanse.
Yeah, it's been a lot, and I really wanted to. I'm glad we took the time. I'm kind of glad both of us have been busy, and it gives me more time to really let it all sink in. Because a lot of times when I do like reviews for shows that were bingeable, I would be knocking them out like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just like binging, when you make that many reviews in a row, you lose a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And this way, by taking my time a little bit, not really intentionally, I think a lot more is sunk in now. And I don't know how do you feel about season 4 overall?
Overall, I really enjoyed it. I have to say it was something that I was so looking forward to. I jumped in a little late into Expanse. I think I had to catch up through season 1, and just really fell in love with the characters, the storytelling, the structure. And as it got bigger and there were more things going on, we don't have a lot of great classic straight sci-fi out there like The Expanse. It really does fill up a niche. I know there's Star Trek and stuff, but that's it was originally behind a paywall, I guess. Expanse was too. It's now with Amazon, which sort of is. But I mean, outside of those old kind of like classic rebooting of stories, we haven't had anything new and fresh really in a long time. So I think Expanse has really filled a great niche, a great needed niche out there. So once 3 ended and off of sci-fi, and we're like, what was going to happen? When Amazon picked it up and was announced, it just got me going. So just the countdown to this season, I was really anticipating it. It did not let me down. And kind of like you, I've stopped doing reviews of binge shows because it's too hard to dive into each one. You get tired out. You're feeling like you're pounding the same things over and over again, and there's a pressure to get them out as quickly as you can so people can watch them. But I think you sort of lose a lot of it. So I think with Expanse, it is such a great show, and it's one of those where I got a chance to stretch it out. I didn't binge it all in one night or 2 nights like I do with some stuff. I was like, man, just at least let the whole season last a week or 2 weeks. Let me enjoy it. Let it sit in. Because sci-fi like this, you need the time to digest it because there's so much stuff going on. It's one of the things I wish Amazon had done a week to week as opposed to a full drop, but I agree with you. I think it's good to have had this time to let it sort of sink in and see what percolates, what works, what really stands out versus the things that like, oh, that was a storyline. Oh, I totally forgot about that character. I guess they weren't important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel kind of the same. I mean, I didn't get into The Expanse until season 3 was just over. And I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I don't dislike it. I just, you know what I mean? Like I liked all the old Shatner movies. Star Trek 4 was when I was young. That was just so great.
Sure.
I was Star Trek 1. I was taken to see that, but I was in like 2-3 years old.
Sure, 1979. Yeah.
I remember like nothing from that. I do, but I have this. I know I went to it. I know I was taken to it. I never saw 2 or 3. Well, I don't want to get into Star Trek.
Sure.
Here goes the tangents already.
Yeah, that's a good classic kind of sci-fi. But yeah, a lot of the newer interpretations don't ring as well with people.
I didn't get into TNG. I didn't get into the Enterprise or any of that stuff. It just didn't speak to me. And I mean, I love Star Wars. I think they're 2 different animals, but there was nothing in between. Like I wanted to find this middle ground, and I didn't know how well The Expanse would fit into that thing that I was looking for. And as soon as I started watching it, I realized, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, and I didn't even know it. And I started making the reviews like instantly for season 1, and just reviewed it like one a day for like a while. And It wasn't like I wasn't binging it. I was making myself watch one and then wait a day and then do another one and then wait a day. And so it still took me a little while to get through it. And it was almost like people were watching it like almost like reaction videos because I was just so blown away. Mm-hmm. It was like I was reviewing it, but a lot of the reviews were like, and why is this, and it's so intelligently written. That was the other thing. It was so based in real science. And I didn't, like what it would really be like if when we were to finally do something out in space. There's no aliens, per se. We've got the proto molecule, which was a great concept because it left it so ambiguous. Yeah. You didn't have to put a name to it or a race to it. It was all just still about survival and culture clash, or class warfare. Mm-hmm. All the ways that we're in space and nothing has changed.
Well, that's it. Great sci-fi reflects on our now through the lens of a future possibility. That's what all really good sci-fi does. And I think this, again, it grabs the zeitgeist. It grabs us with like you said, class warfare, income inequality, opportunities versus no opportunities, racism, class. All sorts of stuff like that. Again, that's one of the great things about sci-fi.
So, yeah, when The Expanse got canceled, like I heard about the cancellation, and right before I started watching the show, and when I hear that, I go, well, is it worth, watching if it's not going to have an ending? And then about halfway through, that's when Amazon announced that they were picking it up. And I
Mhm.
was really, 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 really happy. And the only thing that disappointed me was that they dropped it all at once.
Right.
Um, because Hulu's been doing it like week to week. Disney Plus has been doing it week to week. I don't know, they're both kind of the same thing now, Hulu and Disney Plus.
Sure.
So it makes sense to their platform to keep doing it like that. It's also smart financially to keep doing it like that because then people can't just binge it and cancel your show. Or
Right.
you got them for like 8 weeks or so, 8 to 10 weeks usually before they can cancel. So if they really like it, they got to pay for at least another month.
And each
Um,
chance they got a chance to check out another show that's on
yeah,
there that they could get hooked into. So yeah, you're right. I think it is but I think streaming platforms, they're finding that, that niche right now, which works the best. And maybe there are some shows where they work better as being binged, whereas there are other shows where, you want to sort of take time with it. And I think that's sort of where we are with streaming, is I think they're all just trying to figure out which is the most effective to keep eyes on their service.
yeah. I would have thought that Netflix would have picked up on this by now. Try to do week to week. I mean, they have a few things like reality shows and like news shows or talk shows that they do that with, and I think it's great for when they have a licensed show that's got the full season out. Like
Mhm.
say The Walking Dead drops, or Better Call Saul's new season, fourth season comes out and they drop all those episodes. That's fine because we've
Sure.
already sat through and waited week to week for that. I completely agree with that. But I just new content. It like HBO doesn't just say, oh, screw it, we're going to release all the new season of or The Outsider or Avenue 5 or whatever. They still make you wait too. And Amazon, I thought Amazon and Netflix would be on board with this a lot quicker, and they haven't been.
Mhm.
And it doesn't make me think that they're going to change it anytime soon, because I just binged all of Hunters that was on Amazon, and did one big review, and doing it in 10 hours. I was just like, oh my God, like,
No, your brain's melting out after that
yeah.
point,
And I know that review could have been better if I had like maybe taken more notes or something, but that's the major dislike about the season was that it was dropped all at once, and I felt the pressure that we talked about to get it all done. Because if you look at the YouTube channels, I mean, there are people they were just trying to crank it all out as much as they possibly could.
Right.
And I know some people were being strict with themselves, saying, I'm only going to watch one episode a week. And I thought I could do it. I thought that was my intention too. I was like, I'm doing it. I am going to do it. I'm going to sit there and just watch one a week. And then I watched one.
Now, because it's too
And then I
good,
watched
you
two.
can't look away.
Yeah. And then I watched two. And I'm like, oh God, you're gonna binge this, aren't you? And I had to force myself to stop. My dad watched it in a day and a half. And he was sitting there waiting, like trying to like spoil the whole thing for me. And I literally took me till in the middle of January before I finished it, because I stopped and made myself, slow down.
Right.
And every time I'm walking around, I'm like waiting for him to try to spoil something for me. Oh yeah, guess who dies? I'm like, shut up! Don't tell me nothing.
Yeah, which again is a pain, but I bet you had several moments though in between those episodes where you want it so much, you're thinking about what you just saw, and you suddenly go, "Oh, were they referring back to this?" Or so it's like, "Oh, maybe they're dropping a line about this thing happening." Again, it's one of those where I think as it goes on, even some themes start to sort of pop out when you get a chance to sort of sit with them for a little while, and I think you lose that when you binge things.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. So before we get into like story stuff,
yeah.
what do you think? How do you think it compares to the other 3 seasons?
I wouldn't say that it's my favorite season. That was probably, I don't know. It was tough because 2 and 3, we had the book split was like halfway through in the middle of season 3. And I liked a lot of the stuff with Pax there, and going after the daughter. I loved seeing the development of, Amos's sort of character through there. I liked the sort of arc. There was an action and there were things that were sort of happening. the last half of season 3 was intriguing, but it was definitely a little slower, a little different paced. I like the new storylines. I like how the world is expanding. There's a lot I enjoyed about this episode. And again, I'm nitpicking with any sort of critiques right now. I think I just like the bigger space action that we had kind of probably around season 2 into the first half of season 3. Whereas, you know, I mean, and I'm sure for some it was budgetary reasons. There was a lot more of a constrained storyline. The book, everything takes place on Illis, from what I understand. So it's, you know, it makes sense where everything is sort of focused on there. And I think that there was a lot of good storylines and good character development. I just like it when things are all moving with spaceships in space. Give me more of that. I think that would be my one defining thing. But mostly, again, I thought it was a really enjoyable season, and I liked where they were going with it.
Well, I don't know how much hype I really had. I was more concerned with like how Amazon was going to handle it, because I knew that it had the same, everybody was the same. It's just being, you know, released by a new company.
Right.
And so I didn't have any thoughts that the production would be bad or the acting would be bad or the writing would be bad or anything like that. It all came down to, you know, forget about that it was all dropped at once. Like, it was, for me, compared to the other seasons, how did the story compare to the other ones? And the first, you know, season of The Expanse is this great big conspiracy that's trying to be unraveled, and who's really doing what to who, and being introduced to all the players, and really, you know, like as each episode went on, finding more and more about the world and all the world building went on. It was just such a great entrance. And then season 2, which I think was probably the best season, really just, a lot of shows have that where first season you're figuring things out. Season 2, if you're popular, you hit the ground running. It helps if you have a good story behind you that's already written. So that's great. I mean, and then season 3 came, and I still liked season 3 a lot. It kind of tried to tie it up. I mean, it was like the first 3 seasons felt like one big book.
Yeah.
And so once you close that page or close that book, and now you have another book opening, and you realize that this isn't just going to be one story. You've got to see the other seasons to fully appreciate what you just saw.
Yeah.
And I think, like, as far as like opening parts of the story, it was fine. I didn't dislike it, but it didn't hit me the way season 1 did, where we're setting up all new things. We have, and you can say that we're kind of restarting world building, because with the rings and all these new places that they can go to, and with each place, like Mars is a completely different place now. The belt is a completely different place now.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to rebuild the world. And so as far as world building went, I was not as happy with that aspect of season 4 that I was with season 1. All our characters are still the same, and they're evolving, but they're still them. They're in different situations. And I had to be told by several people that this was a Western. It was a Western motif going on for the stuff that was going down on Ilos. And I was like, okay, I understand that now. Because at first I was just like, it should have occurred to me right away. Going on, you know, the town folk, you know, the white hats come, the black hats come. And it's
they talk about settlers and things like that, you know, and Murtry's whole discussion.
Yeah, it took for somebody to point that out to me, that that's what they were going for. Those were book readers. I also want to thank all the book readers out there for never spoiling anything for me in the comments section. Like the Expanse fans aren't just great sci-fi fans and great fans in general. They respect everyone in the audience to not just go, oh, hey, by the way, blankety blank happens in a second. No, nobody does any of that. I have not experienced one bad situation from any of the fans of the show that watched my reviews or commented on anything. All it usually was like, get ready for more, or, you know, that kind of thing. Just
That's it. They want to share it with you as opposed to spoiling it for you. They're like, no, get up there so you can be part of the thing. I think that's, I have to agree. Yeah. On Twitter, a lot of social media, I run into a lot of Expanse fans, and you're right. I haven't had a bad encounter with a single one of them.
Yeah. Speaking of Twitter, like, I'm on Twitter every day, and I never saw any spoilers. And not even, you know, and it's weird because I'm sure that there are people that were out there that weren't Expanse fans that are like as hardcore Expanse fans as there are, that didn't even like suddenly go, oh, you know, like blah, 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 when such and such died or whatever, and tweeted about it. Nothing. Mm-hmm. There's been nothing. And I don't know how I got through over a month without anybody spoiling it for me. So thank you to the fans for that. But getting back to it, I'd have to say that I liked it about as much as season 3, but I don't think it holds a candle to season 1 or 2. But that being said, like, again, people tend to only hear when you say something negative. And it's like, it's not a negative. It's just, it was different. And it's the beginning of like what I think will probably be 2 more seasons to close the next book, to finish this arc of the Expanse world. And while by the end of it, I am really excited about what's going to happen next, because there's so many more questions now. I can't even imagine what it was like for people that were watching the early seasons every week, waiting for the next little dose of the Expanse that you would get. It makes me feel like when I was watching Lost and going like, no, you cannot fade to black. Do not start playing that exit music. You tell me what happened to Sawyer right now.
No, not the Lost Son. Yeah.
And so, like, oh my goodness. Like, so I'm more excited now for season 5 and 6. And I know I need to go back and rewatch season 4 to like really appreciate it more.
Sure.
And just kind of watch it at my leisure, rather than trying to worry about, I got to get another review out, or I got to come up with some new video about, what this little part in this scene means for season 5 or something like that, you know, that people just like to put out just because, my channel's taking a little bit of a dip in the view department. So, better tell everybody what I think of who's going to be Amos's next girlfriend, you know? Right. So, but overall, like, I was a little underwhelmed by the story, because it was just because it was like just one long movie, right? Like one long story, instead of like in the other seasons, I felt like I was watching a new movie every week. It just really felt like I was always just kind of, we were stationed on the planet. Once they were on the planet, nobody left, or they were hovering above. Right. And then to have the other characters like Bobby on Mars doing her thing, when all I wanted was like, Bobby,
why aren't you on the Rossi with everyone else?
Why are you over there? You hate it on Mars. You hate it there, and now everybody's being mean to you. I just wanted her so badly to like be with the rest of the crew. And then Avasarala going through her own like Game of Thrones situation down on Earth, where she's by herself too, surrounded by political enemies. And I'm just like going, where did Elizabeth, whoever played Juliet on Lost, Elizabeth Mitchell?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know. She just disappeared.
Like, Avasarala needs some help. Somebody call Elizabeth Mitchell in here, man. We need like some help for her too, because she can't come and join the crew. She's sitting there waiting for Holden to send her messages like, God fucking damn it. What is going on over there?
Well, I mean, I think part of that may have just been adaptation. Again, I haven't read the books, but from talking with Mark, who's in the chat, hi Mark, who has read the books, from what I understand, there wasn't any other stuff. It was all Ellis. So, and I think what Pedar also in the chat here is mentioning that, 4 is generally held not to be one of the least favorite books, and that might have been one of the things. So I think from an adaptation, they may have just had a larger challenge to go, hey, how do we tell this story, but still have these other stories being engaged, all these other characters that we want to see. as well as it's new on Amazon, we have to pull in people that may not have seen it. So I think that's where a lot of the first episode, like you said, was that sort of catch up where everybody is, and sort of, again, I've read the books. I don't know how that opened up. But that might have been why we have that sort of obvious link. And we've got Amos talking to the Mao sister there in jail about holding up. And as they go through, it's like, okay, we're going to connect on the bars with Bobby, and then we're going to go through the rings. We're going to say hi to Drummer and make sure, so I think some of that was just the challenges of adaptation and making sure that you have all these other characters. I mean, if we went a whole season without seeing what's going on with Bobby and Drummer and Ashford and all that stuff, we'd go nuts. We'd get frustrated just seeing Illis. So I think they said sort of had to, like, how do we squeeze this into one season, move on to the next, but still set all of these other, linkage pieces that we're going to need going forward. So I think they were tackling a lot in this. And like I said, I think overall for me, it worked. But I do agree it had a very different feel to some of the previous seasons, and just in its pacing and its storytelling.
Well, knowing now that the book was all set on Illis, and then they had to add all that stuff because they wanted to make everybody happy, and you couldn't just have, I mean, you could. You could. A show like The Wire would pull something like that off where it's just like, oh, is that all it is on the planet? That's what we're doing. We're going to write it just like that. We are going to keep strictly to the book. We're not adding shit. But like as Peter says, if that's how I say his name, that it's generally considered the least favorite book, but book 5 is held to be one of the best. Well, that's definitely really good hope for the future. And if they did add all that, it makes you wonder, like, I mean, did they pull the extra stuff from the books, or did they just, like the stuff with Avasarala and Bobby, was that all something that they pulled out of like the 5th book? That's something I hope somebody says here in the chat. I wasn't. I wasn't disappointed. I just felt like, because when I think about it as a whole, what was going on down there was really big and huge. It just felt like I wanted to get past the whole Belters and Mercury, thing. I just wanted to know about the machines on the planet. I wanted to know what Miller and the protomolecule were doing with it. I wanted to know like more about like what was happening with Naomi after she couldn't stay on the planet, which was such a heartbreaking thing. Like, oh yeah,
I loved Naomi's arc in this. There was so much stuff with her that I was really just awesome in this, with her whole getting all the shots to try and go down the planet, the whole scene of her like first stepping on the planet, that whole experience. I really loved how they played with her expansion of character in this.
All right, so since we've started down that road, let's talk about the characters, and we might as well start with Naomi, because I do think that that was one of the biggest moments of the entire series.
Oh yeah,
her decision to go, I don't want to just be a Belter anymore. Like, everybody's searching for new identities and what the rings mean to them, and her was like, I'm not just. It wasn't for Holden. It was for herself. She wanted to prove that she could go out there and be something else, and it was so great that when she got out there, and all the people behind her, Amos and Alex and Holden, all just smiling, knowing what this meant, and then not working out, and her having to literally run off planet to get back into space to live for multiple reasons, and then have to be sidelined, in space, not being able to help her people on the ground, knowing that her body was betraying her in a way, and it wasn't working out the way that she wanted, and now probably feeling like she'll never get back there. She'll never get to be a full, person who can walk around on planets. Her body just won't be able to take it. She's probably thinking that, and then having the whole other thing going on with trying to find her son, finding out about this Marcos guy, it's just her arc. I mean, for being stuck, she really, and she wasn't losing it. like a lot of people would portray, a lot of shows would just have her be going manic and over the top to be like, I gotta go find my son, like no, it was all like, I'm in space, there's nothing I can do.
Well, yeah, they've worked a real good consistency of her character, I think, which is nice. Sometimes when they do character arcs like that, they fall into the trap of going, all right, let's just get emotional so at the end we can have this whole big thing. But it violates, all the character that we have seen before. I think you're right. I think she's approached this, and we've seen through last season and her experience with Jummer, and then going back into the Rossi and kind of making that choice that she is now choosing more of the direction that her life is going in versus reacting to what's going on with the world around her. And in many ways, I think both her and Bobby are the best focuses on characters that are affected the most by the rings. Because, yeah, the Belters, their whole world has changed now. Now they're not stuck out there. Now that there's all of these options of different places to go where they don't have to be tied down. Mars in the same way. This whole pursuit of idea, this one vision the planet has had for so long is now like, yeah, you don't really need to do that because there's options out there now. Those were what, to me, the more interesting, larger ideas that I think they were tackling in with this season. And again, Naomi, a big focus on it is how has all of the individuals changed? How has the power structure changed now that the rings are open, and how does everybody have to deal with it? And for Naomi, she's saying, I don't have to be tied down to the way things were. I can go down planet. I can try and do these things, successful or not. It's that idea, that push to dive more into the world, I think was a great perspective to have with her, because, like I said, even when it didn't work out and she had to, like you say, run from the planet in order to save her life, she was still doing everything she could up there. She's like, great, can't do it down there. Stuff with Belters, need to help out. What can we do? It still kept her character really strong and focused, and I love that.
Yeah, Dominic Tipper is incredible. Okay, so let's move on to somebody who didn't get that much this season, and that's Alex. I love Kaz Anvar. He is like the biggest cheerleader for the show.
Totally.
Everywhere. He engages with so many people. I myself haven't had any engagements with him, but I know that a lot of other people, like Belinda, has had plenty of engagements with him. And I'll watch stuff with him, just be happy about his show and promoting his show and talking to the fans. And so the season comes, and they gave him like a not like the love interest that didn't happen. Like they tried to, the story just, he's like, he doesn't have, he's ready to start dating or whatever now that his situation is what it is. And he tries with I don't remember her name because
Lucia. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just immediately gets shut down. Oh, you're married. And then he's just kind of relegated to sitting up in space. Now it's cool. He's got some cool lines, and he just had to do this a lot. And it was just as cool as he is. It is really disappointing that the book apparently didn't have as much for him to do. Hopefully he was just like behind the scenes going, yay!
He was behind the scenes going, yay for everyone, But,
what did you think? Did you think that if they were going to add stuff, why didn't they maybe beef up his role a little bit more?
Well, I mean, part of it is, I think you have limitations both in time and storyline of where you're going to focus. There's so much more on Illis dealing with the Belters landing there versus the RCA and Mercury and his crew. Who has the right to be there? Who, was it by the first who get there, or the one who has the paperwork and they've got the flag and they can put it down saying we're official? I think, plus wrapping up the whole protomatter or protomolecule bit in the challenge. I think there was a lot to do with the season, and you have to sort of pick and choose, what you're going to do with it. And unfortunately, I think Alex just came up with sort of the short straw. They did what they can, and I think they did sort of at least give him the moment of reflecting on the truth of his action with the family and being able to relate that to Dr. Lucia. Yeah, right. I'm forgetting her name too. I apologize.
I know I have notes too I can look at, but
when he later on has that sort of moment of like, this is what you can do with your family. It's like, I can't go back to mine, but you have the opportunity to sort of dive back in. You want to be there. I think getting that chance to at least take the lessons of his experience and try and pass that on to someone else, I think that was an important something to give him. And at least they did give him that, as opposed to just, the cool lines and the threats and stuff, which he's so very, very good at. But yeah, again, I think it's just, there's just limitations to what that they can do. And hopefully what that means is we're going to have an Alex, a larger Alex story coming up maybe in 5 or 6.
I just want to point out, yes, Peter made some really good comments about the Spacebound Belters. Mark, yes, I love this shirt too. I found it on Redbubble. I can't find it anymore. If you can find it for yourself, anybody, it's the Doors and Corners shirt. It's Thomas Jane, man. It's the Punisher in a fedora. Okay, I love it. I got to take very good care of this shirt if this is the last one you can get of this design. And he also says that Alex's role was beefed up from the book. He thinks so. That means he didn't have much to do even in the book. So next up, let's talk about Avasarala, who. Like I felt like she was going through her own Game of Thrones kind of situation down there, where she saved the world. She saved our galaxy. She played a huge role in it, and now she's forced to like defend herself against like this person who felt like it was a generational thing, where it's the out with the old, in with the new. Like she stopped people that were going to do horrible things in the government, not just in space. She was out there in space and on Earth. She was multitasking like a mofo. And now she has to sit here and listen to some girl, and I'm going to say girl, because compared to Avasarala, she's not quite a woman. But
you always got to fight against the up-and-comers. Once you're on top, everybody else wants to knock you back down.
Yeah, and I just love her attitude. She's a mix of like Tyrion and Cersei Lannister, where it's like she's super smart, she cusses a lot, but she's also like just getting frustrated with the whole thing, where she just says, why do I have to defend myself? And then she started making some iffy choices. And when it came to like taking people into that ship to find the Marcos, and everybody dying, and it's like I don't think that was her fault, but it was that mistake, that one blemish that opened up the doors for the younger generation to say, oh, you guys don't know what you're doing, even though they clearly don't know what. Like, she's just trying to stop people from running into the rings and getting killed because nobody understands what's out there. They all just want to run through there, like literally like, yeehaw! And again, now I'm starting to really understand the Old West motif, it is like going out gold rush, just everybody heading out there to die. Like, think about our country's history and how many people just head west, young man, and then like John Candy
never come back.
Yeah, wagons east, as John Candy says. Okay, it's the same thing. Like, oh God, what are we doing? Except these aren't Indians on chasing you down. It's who knows what, a lot worse than that. And so she's trying to just save lives and pays the price in the end and loses her spot in the government. And I think at first glance, I thought this is a bad thing, but I think what it does in the end is really opens up for not just maybe some like I told you so's later on. It gives her, I think, a jumping off point to become even like more important, do something more important out there later.
Well, again, I think they use her as a great focal point. Also, before I forget, she does to me have one of the best lines in the entire season when she's talking to Holden or leaving a message saying, don't stick your dick in it. It's fucked enough. That thing is fucked enough. God, it's just, I love that line.
Oh my God, yes.
It's so perfectly her and so very just to the point. But yeah, I mean, you're dealing with she gets to be the focal point of the new versus the old in that sense. The cautionary guards, the more conservatives, the one that's more experienced, versus the ones that are like, hey, caution to the wind, let's go. Options are open, and one, it's easy when you are on the sidelines and you're not in the midst of war to go ahead and, critique decisions that were made. And I think with Avasarala, she's having to deal with the ideas. She's never been elected. She's always been one of those appointed people. She's been in government for the longest time, and she has served, and that's what she does. But not from the top. She's the sideline. She's the one that can sneak around. So yeah, I agree with you. I think where she's going to get to go from here, hopefully with Bobby by her side by next season, is she can be the one to navigate the sides of power and be able to push and pull and look at things on the higher level versus having to be so much, in the crosshairs of everyone else with all of her decisions being second guessed. Because yeah, in leadership, you got to make tough calls. And the minute you make a mistake, everyone is ready to jump on you. And I think they used her to a really good extent in kind of illustrating that sort of political mess that's going to come with these new frontiers opening up.
Yeah, she won't be hindered anymore by the politics of Earth per se. I mean, she has all the knowledge, and she can school a lot of people, and she can definitely still handle herself. And yeah, I hope that she does end up with Bobby by the end of it. I mean, that last moment of like, girl, you just picked the wrong time to leave a phone message with me. Like, you have no idea what's going on down here. I thought it was interesting. Did the acting change for her husband?
Yeah, it's a different actor from before. Yes. And
I believe that this was the guy that was originally her husband. I think, wasn't he like in The Mummy? I forget. I don't know if the actor passed away, if they made that change. If they made that change because what the role was demanding.
I think he was doing something else and he wasn't available, so they had to get somebody else. I think
because I rarely think that acting changes matter, but I really liked this guy. I know that he's more of a side character, but I'm fine talking about it because he's kind of got that connection with Avasarala's arc. I liked, because I felt like the other actor was he seemed more like a sitcom dad, kind of, ooh, hey, like very just kind of there.
Yeah, he was playing that kind of perception. He wasn't playing as sort of with it, the educator that this character or this actor was sort of taking the point of view from.
Yeah. All right. So do you have anything else for Avasarala?
No, but since you had brought him up, I did want to say that was the one thing that did sort of annoy me in her particular arc, is how he sort of reacted to her and sort of walked away. Because we have seen over several seasons her doing some pretty hardcore stuff. I mean, I always remember went back from season, was it 1 or 2? Her friend died directly as a result of her using him to find out about Mars's secret stealth bases and stuff. I mean, that led directly to his death. I mean, she sort of did that knowing that he would get in trouble. I mean, I'm not saying that she thought that he was going to die or that, kill himself or any of that stuff that ended up happening. But she has made really harsh choices. She has made really edge things. And that her husband sort of reacted to the strength that he did, whether you can say that she used her son's death or not for political reasons, I didn't get the reaction. And maybe that was just because the two actors played the character differently and we didn't see the sort of side of the character from the previous incarnation. But I was really surprised by his reaction to her decisions at the end there. That was like, wow, that's it? That's the line for you? With everything else that just happened? Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe they're really trying to clear the board for her, give her no reason to stick around for anything. If she's free of if she doesn't have to worry about him right now, it gives her even more opportunities to just go, okay, you're doing your thing, I'm out. Next, let's talk about my favorite character, Amos. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All day. We could do that all day. I'm fine with that.
Amos, played by Wes Chatham. Oh my God. Even like he was the one, like there were several really standout performances this year for this season. And it's just, I'm not going to, it's always standout. It's always going to be the guy who gets like the coolest things to say, the coolest things to do. He'll give you the look. Holy God. If you don't know what look I'm talking about, the look he gives Mercury at the end of that season was one of the best looks I have ever seen on any actor's face ever in television or movies.
Especially the blood up and everything. It's like, yes.
And I just want to say really quickly to the chat, I'm not ignoring anybody here. I am reading your stuff. I'm just not typing. I'm more of I'll read and then just say something out loud to you guys. So Amos. Oh, okay. So the only thing that I didn't like, and I'm just getting it out of the way, was the relationship he had with the girl.
With Way.
I just thought like it was forcing him to just, I guess maybe I'm gonna have to change my mind on that already. I'm gonna have to flip flop already. I just on the surface I was like, why? But in the end I get why, because we needed him to have some kind of arc.
And well, each season his world is expanding. Before we were talking about this earlier. He and Naomi were the connections right there. And as that sort of extends, then Holden came in and Alex came in, and then suddenly it was one individual. Now it has a family. Now he's starting to open up. Each season, his world is slowly opening. So I think this was the necessary next step. As much as you can relationship-wise for Amos.
Yeah. I guess you could see it. I can see it as he's one of the cowboys who rolls into town, meets one of the people from the other side of the table that he probably shouldn't be talking to, and ends up in a difficult situation that he doesn't really see as difficult. I don't think he sees any kind of thing like this as difficult. It's so black and white with him. It's either, these are my people, they're your people. Don't let your people get in the way of my people. Otherwise, we're good. He constantly is always like, do you think I'm going to stop sleeping with you now? This kind of things. But yeah, like Pedar says here in the chat, Amos being scared was one of the most unsettling things ever, because he went from sitting across from Mercury saying, if you get in the way of me and my people, like, we're going to dance, man. There's going to be blood. Like I can do this right now.
Oh, I love that.
Right now, where are you going? What do you got to do? Because we can settle this.
I got time
now. And so going from like that badass moment to after what happens, and he's in the cave and he's blind and freaking out. He never seemed to be a character who was ever worried about his mortality until that moment. And still, as soon as things were fixed, he went right back to being old Amos. Like, okay, I'm good. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. I was never going to die. Let's go. And then at the end, I don't know if I really thought he was going to die, but I'm glad that Mercury did what he did to him now, because then we got the end scene, because it wouldn't have as much impact if Mercury didn't kind of mess him up. And for a split second, because that's what happens at the end of every kind of show, is when the stakes are really high and body counts are going to start adding up, and some people fall down on the wayside and you don't know what happened to them. And he comes back, gets still like handless practically, survives the whole encounter, goes like pretty much immediately goes back to being himself, even though I know internally he's grown as a character. He shows you nothing. He told Holden, I'm not going to kill this guy. We need him. We don't know if Mercury's alive.
Amos is good enough that he could beat him to a pulp and still keep him alive. I'm sure the med doc's right there.
Yeah, I mean, I like his reaction. Yeah, I like his reaction to him not being dead. Like, you didn't kill this guy? We need him alive. And yeah, you're right. He would be the guy who could take like put a bunch of oranges in a sack and beat him with him so they wouldn't like leave any marks.
Yeah.
But that look at the end where it was just, I don't know if I can recreate that or not, but it was just like, oh God, how, I don't even know if I should, but it's just like that. Thank you.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Like,
it was awesome.
Oh my God.
Well, and it's interesting that he did. To me, it's really one of those interesting kind of like Amos arcs that he had with that moment of fear. Because remember, was it last season when he was talking with Pax? He was talking about growing up, and he had made this comment like, "I haven't felt fear since I was, 14 years old or 12 years old." And Pax was like, "Oh, that sounds nice," because he's freaking out. He's like, "Oh, I'd like to not be afraid," and Amos is like, "No, it's not." Like not feeling fear, not feeling that emotion. It's useful, but that's not necessarily a good thing. So that he goes from that time, even dealing with the protomolecule and everything, not feeling that, or at least again, we don't see it. And at the end of this season, he has that, oh my God, it's like emotion is now creeping back into Amos. And to me, that's the interesting arc within that. I think is because, like I said, he continues to open up a little bit to break down some of his own internal barriers every season from one thing to another. And I'm really looking, and that's why to me, especially with, you said that moment with Mercury at the end, I can't wait to see where he goes next season. I really think that's going to be the blowout. Amos, we're going to get the story. We're going to find out about Philadelphia. We're going to really dive in because I think now they've given us all of those things so that we are prepped for that real deep dive.
Since we're talking about Amos then and the look, let's talk about Mercury. Vern Gorman is one of and really quickly, hey, Belinda, thank you for making it to the live stream. I really appreciate it. Vern Gorman is one of the best on-screen television baddies I've seen in the past 20 years, whether it was on, and he wasn't bad in like Torchwood as a bad guy per se, but like on Game of Thrones, he's so great at playing this kind of guy, but he didn't make him completely one-dimensional. He never does. You never quite know what's in this guy's head, even though you think he's just going to do something rash or something like that. He does something rash, but not in the way that I would think he was going to do it. Right. And he's also not 100% wrong in his motivations.
No, that's the great thing about, you were talking about with characters and everything, is the dimensionality they add. Even our villains from the beginning of the show, we see their points of view. They all have a legitimate idea behind them. They may have made choices that cross ethical lines. But yeah, that's the great thing about Mercury is, hey, people were killed. Of course he's upset about that. Does he go too far? Sure, of course he does. He's Mercury. But yeah, I think that's one of the great things about this show, whether you be the Belters or you even look at Marcos for a certain extent, when we go on later on and hit that. Gal, everybody's has a legitimate point to their point of view. It's just, do they cross those ethical lines? And I think that's what makes the show really interesting.
Yeah, he sees, he was clearly going there with a motive. He clearly used what happened to his advantage. And that's what makes it even more diabolical to me, is that he knows he just goes, oh, well, it sucks that some of my people died, but this makes my job a whole lot easier now.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, I was going to have to go down there and try to just be the brute and yell at all the Belters who haven't done anything to me. Now they have. They struck first. Before I even had to be a bastard, they gave me a reason to be one. And then he takes it way too far, like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And how they wrote him to handle Amos and Holden was like, because I kept thinking, Holden, just shoot him. Just be done with this. But our white hats are white hats, and our black hats think they have white hats. And nobody wants to start a war everybody wants to, nobody was out of character. I mean, Murchie's a new character, so he can kind of do whatever he wants.
Sure. But he does have the challenge to be a villain that could stand up to someone like Amos and Holden and hold them off equally. And I think he did. I think the actor really held that point.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything new for Belter, inner relationships at all. He personally, if this was being broadcast like a reality show, would have set him back 100 years. If everybody was watching what was going on down there would be another riot in space. The Belters would have gone just absolutely nuts. It's one of the only things about this kind of being a closed circuit event going on down there was that if the rest of the belt found out, oh, whoa. I mean, and not to say that it won't still get out there.
Well, no, but again, it's the frontier. Yep. Communication is not that quick. Things aren't going on. When you're out in the middle of the frontier, all sorts of stuff can happen and no one will ever hear about it. Or the survivors just make up their own story. So, yeah, definitely old West style stuff. And his moves against the people in space with the pod, with the bomb and everything, that he was doing things that nobody could predict. He was doing things that nobody, had very little chance of succeeding at stopping. It just so happens that he's going up against a crew who knows how to work on their feet and come to, figure things out quicker than he was used to. I mean, if it wasn't for our crew, he literally would have just laid, actually that whole planet would have just been like, everybody would have been dead. Oh yeah. Well, but that's it. And that showed his ruthlessness. He was smart and he was planning ahead, but just because he was ruthless enough to make these decisions, like you had said, I was just looking for the excuse and the Belters gave it to him. So he has this whole bag full of tricks that nobody's expecting to use. He comes in with the flag like, hey man, we've got a charter. We're doing this under the flag of the UN and everybody. And, we're authorized and you're not. He hides behind the badge and uses that to push and manipulate everyone around him. So ultimately, so he can make a buck. That's the great thing about it. What's his main motivation? He's got a stake in the game now. If he gets rid of all the Belters, he can make all of this money. So it's layer after layer. He's a cruel man who now has an excuse to do it, a banner to excuse all of his behavior, and a personal motivation to make it as one-sided as possible.
Yeah, I'm really glad that he probably, like you said, I'm sure he's alive, and I'm pretty sure he is too. He's one of those guys. The villains in this show, they don't just get killed off. Like in movies, they kill off the supervillain. Like in a comic book movie, they just get rid of somebody, or on a TV show. Well, TV shows are a lot better at keeping their villains around. But he's one of those guys that'll go up there if he sticks around long enough. He'll be like cigarette smoking man. He'll be like Benjamin Linus. I mean,
he'd be a ruthless dictator.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do more with him. So let's move on to our next character, and that's Bobby.
Bobby.
I did not know how much I'd like Bobby. By the end of season 3, I was just like, I mean, literally at first I was just kind of like, By the end of season 3, I was like, what is wrong with me? I was like jumping on her bandwagon like immediately, because she just came out of nowhere and like steals every scene she's in. She's like, oh God, I don't know how else to compare her. It's just there's so many analogies I could use for her, but she's that person who just walks into the room and commands just attention.
Oh yeah,
and she's so unassuming looking, and then she acts, and you're just like, whoa. And in this, it was like I said, I wished she was with our crew, but it was, I think, important for her character to see what was happening on Mars and how much Mars had changed after everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
That as much as I was sad that she wasn't with our group, her journey towards where she ends up looking for Avasarala was fantastic. I loved how she whooped those wannabes right at the beginning. I was looking forward to a whole season of her just smacking that going around just left and right. And then getting caught up in it, kind of giving up and saying, well, this is what I got to do to survive. The system is screwing me over, so I'm going to screw the system right back. But then still never losing that part of herself that couldn't just let bad things happen. And then just everything, her whole world blowing up in spite of it. And all those other people getting killed and exposing this whole thing with it connects to everything else with the whole selling of arms on Mars to people like Marcos that are all these things. Like her storyline is probably the most important world building in the show as far as going forward. But I guess because Ilos was great and we got introduction to Mercury, we got the planet stuff that's going on. But as far as like interconnecting stories, I think Bobby's connects with everyone's rather than vice versa. What did you think of Bobby?
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to go ahead and admit, for some reason, my husky is out howling at the moon or something right now. So that's the background. I'd bring her on camera, but she's outside. I'm kind of two minds of Bobby's whole arc because one, yes, I love Bobby. And the world building arc, the effects of the ring gates, how it's affected Mars and how that has sort of changed and altered that whole society, I think was really important thing to show. On the other hand, it was kind of my least interested arc, really? Just because I agree. I'm in the same point. I was like, Bobby, why aren't you on the Rossi? Get off of Mars. Mars sucks. It's all falling apart. Get off planet and get to the rest. So I was kind of waiting all season for her to wake up and get off of Mars. Whether it was to go with the Rossi or go, was it to Jupiter, to the belt, where the guy that she was seen with was going off into one thing, or mainly to smarten up and go connect up with Avasarala, because I thought that she'd connect with him, with her, and then they'd be able to dive into to more of these bigger war issues. So I think that was the one thing in her big arc that kind of was a little distraction. It was I was waiting for it to end. It was important for us to see the effects that it had and how all of these soldiers now have nothing to do. And now this one planet that never had unemployment now has unemployed people around, and people are selling off weapons because who cares? It's all over. It's peace now. Now there's other opportunities. We can go out. Let's make a buck. Like I said, I think that was a really important part of the world, the reaction to the gates to show. I just wanted Bobby to wake up and go, great, see all that? Good. Shorten up and get out and let's get back in with the rest of the group. So that was that was the only thing that was really holding me back kind of in that. It was just, I knew that she can't be there. There was no point for her to be there. So I just wanted her off of Mars. But like I said, the story that had to be told for her to get to that point, I think was really important to tell.
Yeah, I can definitely see your side of that. I wanted her to just get off planet as well. I think it was important, though, to show that after all this time, after all the fight, after everything that Mars has done to try to be the new Earth, it's failed because of what happened with the rings, that now nobody cares. Everybody's just going to leave, and they can already go to terraformed places. Nobody had to do all that work, and how awful it would feel to all the people that have lived and died to get this done. And now it's just Mars can just go back to being a rock again in space, where some people probably go to. It'll be like an abandoned mall.
Oh my God, Mars is the abandoned mall of the future. I mean, it sounds like they're probably a small group that's still trying to push things and get it changed over. But yeah, it's, we're going to have it in 100 years or in a few decades. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, well, not a completely abandoned mall. They probably still have a Sbarro and maybe a couple of kiosks in there that want to sell you things for your phone cases or something. Just,
they have the last Blockbuster in there.
Yeah.
And a Sam Goody. And
maybe that it's like Disney Europe, or whatever, Euro Disney, you know, like it started out, everybody thought it was going to be fine. Then not so much.
No.
Except with less death.
Society has changed. They're going to turn
Yep.
Mars into a giant parking lot. Okay.
Yep. Come to Mars, park your ship here.
That's right. Easy access to the ring gates. We have shuttles going every 3 hours.
Yeah. Poor Bobby. Yeah. She, you know, like they said, they put her in the show because they needed to have all the cast in there. And yeah, she, unfortunately, it looks like she got relegated to just being a symbol of the failure of Mars and what happens when that system fails. And hopefully they'll be able to take what she's gotten through here and make it a bigger and more important thing in the next couple of seasons as they go. Next person we have to talk about, like, you know what? I'm having a hard time. Okay, so let's talk about Holden / Miller.
Okay, yeah, no, we should put those together. That makes sense. That makes sense.
I'm saving the last for a purpose because I
know who you want to talk to about the end. So yeah, that's I totally.
So we need to talk about Holden and Miller, even though I love Thomas Jane so much, and I know that they couldn't have him in here all the time, and for book purposes too, it sounds like there really wasn't a reason for him to be here. But Holden coming here, I love that beginning scene where he's on Earth with his mother, and there's the memory of Miller, like still going through the old conversations to have a conversation with him, to try to get to have a conversation about what needs to be done. Almost like a riddle that you have to like kind of like piece apart what he's trying to tell you or what the proto-molecule is trying to tell you. I always get that confused because it's like it's him, but it's not him. It's like an echo.
An echo, yeah, that's probably the best thing, and an echo being used for another purpose.
And you know, him going out there to the rings on this mission for Avasarala to be kind of like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a UN peacekeeping team almost, except, you know, fully loaded and ready to shoot if they have to.
Fact-finding mission. The term is UN fact-finding mission. That's what they call it.
Yeah, it's black books, what is that? Like black ops, not black books. And so he gets down there and he's flying blind. He's just trying to keep the peace. He's trying to be there for Naomi. He's having all these visions of what's going on. Nobody wanting to believe him, as usual. Having everybody from all sides. And I want to give it up to Stephen Strait because he's an actor that I said from the very beginning that I never knew I was going to like. I'd seen him on shows like Magic City, and I just never really vibed with any of his stuff before. And this show completely turned me around on Stephen Strait. He's so good as Holden. It makes me just go, I don't care what he's in now. I'll watch him whatever. But the way he played him as that kind of like, since again, we go off that Western motif, the guy that's put upon I'm trying to think of old timey Western guys that aren't John Wayne, more of like Henry Ford types or Gene, like the silent, you know, speak softly, like, or the silent, the soft spoken guys who.
Well, Jimmy Stewart did a lot of Westerns.
Jimmy Stewart kind of role where he's trying to just keep the peace for everybody, get all the information out. Plus, he's got all that banging around in his head, and then getting inside that place, trying to get Miller to come back out. He was spinning so many plates. He must have been like the biggest character in the book, and it's a shame that I kind of feel like he was still underutilized in a way. He was kind of like our exposition guy in a way. He was there to move the plot forward in a lot of ways. Even though like he was integral to all of it. I don't know. How do you feel? Because I like when Miller finally shows back up, and to me, that was really Miller.
Yeah.
Like for the last gasp, we got to see Thomas Jane be him. Like I can finally come out. They've been trying to stop me. And we still don't quite know what it was, to me, what was trying to stop him. He's looking for whoever killed these guys on this planet, whoever created the proto-molecule, who killed them. He's on his own mystery mission to find them and stop them. And by the end, I'm left with more questions than anything. I believe the proto-molecule Miller and Miller are officially gone.
Yes.
And that was just like, it was, you could just tell. And then like having that, like my last words to him were just like, because you just never know in real life. You never know.
You never know when it's going to be your last moment.
Yeah, you can't just always leave the room like, all right, every time I leave the room, I've got to have like I got a list of things that I'm going to say to people whenever I leave a room. Like, you know, live long and prosper, everybody. Every time I leave a room, you know, like, man, you know, and then he got hit by a bus. But he said,
I'll always remember the last thing that he said.
Like, hey, man, I got to go take a massive dump. Bye. And then die on the toilet. That's your last words.
Live long and prosper.
Yes.
Yeah, sad thing to say before you headed off to the toilet.
But I have he's the hardest one for me to talk about for this season, because it was he had such a complicated job to do. And I still don't think I fully appreciate or understand everything that he had to do, because it was all about, I got to turn on this and I got to keep everybody alive and I got to solve what's killing these people. And the only way I can solve that is if Miller comes back to me. You know, he's the conduit to this thing that's been inside him for all this time. What do you think about what Holden went through this year?
I think the real challenge that Holden had this season is he had so many hats that he had to wear. And I think that he has was it Belinda mentions here in the chat that Holden really became Holden this season. Steven's done a wonderful job portraying that arc over these 4 seasons. And yeah, I completely agree. He's taken all of these bits. You know, originally he was young and he was trying to avoid everything. He didn't want to be captain. He didn't want any responsibility. To what we have here is he has responsibility of whole planets, and he sees the fact he's embracing the idea that he made the choice to open up the rings. He did the thing. Yeah, the proto-molecule moved him around, but he made those choices. He opened that up. So everything that happens after this, he takes that sense of responsibility. And I think he really embraced the real reality of that. He became the adult, the dad, the big guy in the room that has to juggle all of these hats. Would it be easier to shoot this guy and get him out of the way? Yeah, but we can't do that. That's not the way things are supposed to be done. We have to be better people. And you got to stop killing things, and we all got to work together. It's the only way we're going to survive. You know, he's kind of like that voice of clarity through it all. And yet, because he's wearing so many hats, he's can only be peripherally involved with every storyline. So yeah, I think they give him the challenge of be the adult with a bunch of children and go fix this broken thing. It's like, great. If there's any parents, you know exactly, you know, you're in the other room trying to fix the broken table and you're just hearing all the banging and crashing in the next room. And you're like, quiet it down in there. Stop. I got to put this down and go tie up the kids and make sure they're okay. Don't tie up your kids. I'm making a joke here. So, yeah, I mean, I think they gave him a lot of stuff to do, but I think he really, I think Stephen Strait really embraced that, both with the complications that are involved and the willingness to really put himself out there and take that responsibility and keep pressing at it to solve all of these things because they had to be done. And I think that's one of the great things is everything he did had to be done. It wasn't extra stuff to do. It wasn't I was interested. It was all this is all important stuff, and we have to sort all of this out. And you know, I mean, that's a lot of stuff to give one character to do. But he does have Miller, you know, our victim of space identity theft. I think in the ultimate way, alien identity theft. Who again was kind of great, and I love that sort of realization break of that we've been dealing with not the Miller that we think that we've been dealing with Miller. We've been dealing with the proto-molecule using Miller's face to try and get Holden to do all of these things. And to have Miller being able to sort of break out of that in the midst. I love that whole little transition scene and that kind of fighting. I think they took that visually, they told that story really well, of an internal fight that sort of broke things out, you know. So I loved that whole kind of Miller bit too, but it was a fun little arc because he's putting his, you know, Holden's putting his trust inside of someone he trusts, but isn't the person that he thinks it is. And then he has to embrace that trust later on. Again, it's just, it was a very cool arc. I really enjoyed all these things, but it's a lot of stuff to do inside, you know, of a single season like that.
Yeah, Peter definitely says, you know, I like what Ashford and Drummer said about him being a prophet and a madman. That's a really good line. Also, like Belinda saying, we got the investigator POV, which I loved. The way the proto-molecule sees things, like, and takes like everything in the, I don't want to call it predator view, but like like just talking and breaking things down. And I loved all of that. That was really, really cool. Yeah, Holden had to do so much, and he's the guy that always puts everything on himself now. He blames himself for everything. And my TV just went into shutdown mode. So I guess it don't really matter. It'll turn itself off. It was on for, I was not doing anything with it. It decided to crap out on me. So anyway, like, yeah, he's that guy that people have to remind. It's not just you, man. It wasn't just you. Like you might have opened the rings, but everybody else is responsible for this too. Yeah, I love that he has become that way. Like you said, from the beginning, the guy who just he was just running, to the guy who's running things in a way, like his own thing, the guy that you want to be in the front lines of a bad situation, who can diffuse things by diplomacy and not just shooting first, even though he's got people that could do that for him really quickly.
It's good to have, that's what your Amos is for.
Yeah. Okay, before we get to the last people, I just want to talk about, like, what did you think of the kind of the side characters in this, the Belters on Ilis, and Mercury's crew, and some of the science people, like Dr. Lucia or whatever I think her name is. Yeah, I hate it when I say whatever like that about a person that was acting in a show, like they didn't, like, oh, whatever that person is, or like Marcos. People like that. I mean, we only got Fred Johnson in like one scene, which was so great to see Chad Coleman back. Yeah, even in just like one moment. But like for me, before I guess I ask you, like for me, when I looked at these side characters, most of them really were the definition of side characters. Where I guess that was probably why I was having a hard time being as invested in the other seasons, is because I kind of didn't really care what happened to any of them. The little girl out in space who wanted to just go to college, I was like, I don't care if you ever go to college. I don't care. I didn't want her to get necessarily blown up either, but I was just like, sure. I've seen the Belter versus Inners thing for so long, and I know it is always going to be a part of it, but it just felt really like we were stuck with these people. It's like being on that planet. I felt like I was stuck there too, listening to them just yell at each other back and forth, saying the same things I've heard over and over and over again. And just like how some things never change. And I think that's the point. I think that's the point of it all. But it grated so that whenever we get away from those moments, I was like, thank God. But I mean, it's a little tiny gripe, but I just felt like a lot of those people just,
I think that's a fair gripe, and we've had a lot of different communities that we've sort of engaged with, and I think often we'll pull one or two characters out of this that we like. I think they're an important role because they're serving a really important storytelling arc, experience, and point of view about the Belters going out, and about, you know, news settling, and about the problems and complications that are going to go in, and you know, I mean, again, there's a whole reason why this story is being told. I think we were so caught up with the proto molecule that I think a lot of times that storyline felt like a distraction. Like you said, you're just like, well, what's going on with the proto molecule? This thing's just popped up. And it was something that sort of had to be, they were just complications that the characters had to deal with and sort out. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see exactly where you're going through. I guess I'm trying to put that into words of like, why is it that we're feeling this way? I think some of them were interesting enough.
Yeah, I'm not saying they all were bad or all interesting.
But I definitely don't care about seeing. Yeah, I was gonna say, but I definitely don't care about seeing any of them again. Whereas there's a lot of other previous characters and stuff that I'd be like, no, man, go back and see this. It's like, look, man, give a radio call to Pax. I just want to know how Pax is doing. Why haven't we seen Pax? You know, there's a character, there's a grab, there's a storyline that we're entrenched. Of course, we spent a long time with him, and we were very emotionally invested in that. I think they tried to do that with having Naomi's connection, and with the little girl that wanted to go to college, and having the scientists sort of arguing with Mercury about what is the best thing that we need to be paying attention to, the larger planet or dealing with the smaller settlers. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot that they had to deal with. And it's, to me, it was one of those where it was just, I liked the story that was being told. I just didn't need as much of it, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So it's time to talk about what I've been putting off talking about because
Sorry, I was saying Pax, it's Prax.
Oh.
Corrected me. Sorry.
Oh, from the chat. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the last two characters, almost three characters I want to talk about is Drummer and Ashford. Because wow. And I know I just said like the Belters versus Inners thing is kind of like old hat, but these two represent like such opposing viewpoints in the previous season and how they did things and how they talk about it now, coming at it from completely different ways, and have changed in a lot. Like, I know that Ashford is a lot different in the books, as I'm told. Them like being out there having to kind of tell other Belters, this is, you know, like, we're trying to work towards peace. We're trying to find that other way that Ashford learned by the end of season 3, that we can all live together. We can look for better ways to doing things. And David Strathairn is one of the best character actors we have ever had. Okay, if you've never seen the movie Sneakers, you're doing yourself a disservice. Not just that, but like Pierce Patchett in LA Confidential, movies like that. Just, he's so, you know, you're getting a good performance. And I loved him when he was being bad and rash and insensitive and only about the Belters. And now I love this Ashford even more. They made the right, you know, like they wrote him so well, and I guess he's way different in the books, and it's like the best decision, I think. If you're going to change a character, do something better with it. I can't say that it's better because I never read the books, but I will believe the people that have read the books tell me that he's better. And Drummer, played by Kara G, who I'm in love with her.
For good reason. For good reason.
And it doesn't hurt that they get there. She's such an awesome character. Everything she went through in season 3, and she's still freaking there. There were so many moments I thought she was going to die, and she's still standing with her new spine. And them having to make this hard decision about what they do, how they handle Belters going through the rings, but then having to deal with this guy named Marcos, who is Naomi's ex, who's got her son, who's taking him down a very bad, very, very bad path. And the job that Drummer and Ashford have to do about whether to let this guy go or kill him. And like almost like the plans that they have and the flip that Drummer has that kind of was like unexpected, that you knew was going to kind of bite him in the butt, but I understood why she made the decision. And I could I'm going to stop talking about it and let you get a word in edgewise about this.
Oh man, you're enjoying it. This is great.
Because,
it's the passion that we like here, Rob. Yeah.
Ashford just kicked so much ass. And he was just a guy standing there talking, and everything that came out of his mouth was just intelligent and well-spoken. And it's just like this is the same guy from last season. Like, what a way to show that people can change when they're shown like a different way of doing things and a different perspective. And not everybody just stays bad or good, like this guy really, he still wants what's best for his people, but he's now like, he's not just about just his people anymore. He's just like, like a lot of belters are. It's just like, it's us versus them, and they feel like it's us versus them. And it's not necessarily that that's not true, but not every one of them has a changed and evolved their way of thinking as Ashford has. Mm-hmm. And his whole arc in this and the faithfulness of it all and the way he went out is one of the most heroic moments on any show, sci-fi or otherwise, that I did not know. I knew someone was going to perish before this was over. And when it was him, I was genuinely shocked. And when I knew it was it was telegraphed, not telegraphed, but you knew it was going to happen by the end. And I sat there going, no,
there's got to be some way out. He gets a thing. He talks away.
Last second, and he still goes out like a hero, and he leaves behind the proof and where to find him and what's going on. And I just can't say enough good things about, like, David Strathairn should be given some sort of consideration for running the Emmys or something. And not just that, but like I said, Kara G, who's changed and she still hates Holden in a way, but like, I think Ashford kind of considers her like his daughter, and almost like he's doing part of this to like prove to her that he's not just a one note guy. What do you think? I'll stop now.
Well, I think you've hit a lot of the points, and I think that's why they are such great characters, because they have a history. And what we're seeing is these are two warriors that have respect for each other, trying to sort out a post-war environment where suddenly they were the ones on the outside, the OPA, trying to find legitimacy. Well, now they have it. Now they've got legitimacy and all of the stuff that plays with it, all of the political games that you have to do in order to play with the big boys and have that seat at the table. And I think doing the focus with these two characters, especially, the fact that, we got Drummers kind of in charge there of the station and letting people through it. Now we've got Ashford as the sort of, he's the one that goes out. He's like the sheriff, I'm going to go out and do this thing and get this thing, and then I'll come back and I'll report to you. That they've had the switch back and forth of who's the leader and who's the follower, and the fact that they can easily jump through that back and forth. They even did that a couple of times this season, which I thought was really brilliantly done. We got Drummer in charge and then Ashford behind. And then when Drummer leaves, it's like, screw this. Then she's kind of reporting that suddenly Ashford's kind of the one in charge there. And she's reporting to him. They don't have... You ever notice when you're out in bars, old warriors never talk about how badass they are.
Yeah.
Young people with attitude that approve something, they're the ones that will tell you of how tough they are and what they can do, and they can beat you down. The old warrior doesn't waste their time with that type of posturing. And I think both David Strathairn and Kara G inhabit those types of characters perfectly in with this. They're just here to sort out these issues the best that they can. We've had Ashford's arc over. Was he the new person coming in, and then he sort of took over, and now he's realizing that there's a different way you have to work when you're in charge. Drummers walked at the same thing. I've loved where those particular arcs have brought them. the fact that Strathern goes out the way that he does, that Ashford has those moments, like you say, it's predicted, 3-4 minutes before he dies that he's over with. And he just has these moments. And God, did he own that? You're right. It was, I mean, even that whole scene, I mean, the ship attack where he goes through in 0G, just shooting the guards behind him, with the double gun action and going through and cleaning up. You're like, yeah, man, this is why he's such a badass. Okay, he wasn't expecting Naomi's kid to be there right behind him. And, and that gives us our shocking reveal where it's like, no, this is where the next storyline's going. And that is the end of Ashford. It's like we're given something and something is taken from us. And I think that's such a great moment for that final scene as we get this great realization with Naomi's family and her son and what's really going on. But giving us that knowledge takes away Ashford. And I loved how that went out. And doing this slow, just freezing of the body as he floats out of the airlock. They spent time. Those are shots that are really good to spend time with. And I loved seeing that. Yeah,
it was a very like almost Ned Stark kind of thing by the end of it, where you hope Ned Stark doesn't, have the thing that happens to him in Game of Thrones. It's probably over for him. Unfortunately, he didn't get as graceful send-off as Ashford got. Like, he didn't get to stand up and say, he didn't get to just go, give me a second before you cut my head off so I can give tell these people what's what. He didn't get that moment, Ashford did. And the scene where he goes through reminded me of what Drummer did in the previous season when she shot up and you thought she was going to be the one that died. She
that's good.
She has her own kind of moment, like shooting up and boom, 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 and doing her own thing. Ashford has the same thing, but it just happens with different results. And he just stood there and let it. I mean, he had a plan. He knew he was going to die, but he was going to make it mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know it. That's the great part, is that Marco and Naomi's kid, poor Naomi's kid, man, he's been run down a really bad path.
Oh, yeah.
That they don't know that he had a plan. They think they just killed another, we got the best of that old man, when really he got one over on them and they don't even know it yet.
Well, that's why you always take advantage of the villain's urge to monologue. They have to do it. They're villains. It's required under contract. Just record it for posterity. It helps your side. Take advantage of these moments.
Yeah, man, I really, of all the characters on this show that have gone, even Miller, right? I accepted Miller because it felt like a good ending. Even what happens at the end of the season, it felt like really closing the book on that character.
Yeah.
But this one hurts. This one hurts, and that means it's something. That means you've done something right, is that you got me to care about a character that, well, I thought I loved how Strathern was playing him. It wasn't until this season that made me go, oh man, no, we can't lose this guy. Oh, we are.
And we've only had a half a season before with him.
Yeah.
That's the great thing. To me, that's the wonderful part is like, really, you had half a season and this season. And we're already going to miss him more than characters that have been with us for just as long, if not longer. So, I completely agree. I love the arc that they did with the characters. And I love the challenge that they have to do that Ashford and Drummer are dealing with are, again, the political ramifications of now being at the table, the decisions they have to make with Marcos. You're talking about the surprising decision that Drummer had made initially with Marcos to make a deal with him and to let him go and do all of that in order to keep peace. Later on, we can critique that may not have been a smart choice, hindsight being 2020. But I think she was right to have made that choice initially, because you can't do the simple stuff. You've got to think of the larger picture and of the idea of that, it's better that the OPA deal with it than Earth deals with it. Because if Earth deals with it, then it becomes a much bigger issue. They said, always deal with things in-house whenever you can. And I like the idea that we're seeing the complications that are being from, hey, we're the rebel group out in the belt, to now, okay, we're part of the Galactic Senate. Now we got to sit down and compromise and make strategic partnerships, and so much more boring than just being out on the range.
And so Marcos then, with his whole plan of flinging an asteroid at Earth, that's what he's doing, right? If I remember correctly.
Flinging a lot of asteroids at Earth.
Yeah, that makes him like, here's the thing, like Mercury to me right now is a better villain because he got more screen time. Marcos is more of the guy that's like, he's like the boogeyman. He's out there doing something, but nobody knows where he is. Nobody can pin him down. Every time they think they got him, he's somewhere else. And I think that them letting him go is going to probably really, and once she finds, Ashford and his message and all that stuff, it's gonna make Drummer even more of a force to be reckoned with coming up later in the show, because I look at Marcos and he's the guy that I just want him to get killed. Mercury's the guy that I love to hate.
Sure. No, but Marcos is someone that needs to be taken out.
He needs to go now. And as Belinda's saying, apparently he's like the best villain in the rest of the series. So hopefully he becomes like, we get to see more of him. Because right now he's just been that guy who, twirls the mustache and says snidely whiplash type of things to people, and just like, you guys don't, you're not going to stop me. I see, I need more than that, because right now he's just a cocky guy who needs to get put in his place.
Well, I think there's always a challenge when you have new big bads coming up, is to establish a reason for their intelligence. I mean, Marcos has this very big, complicated, multi-level plan going in, with getting the stealth technology, messing around with Mars, getting them in the rocks, making, doing feint maneuvers with ships so they're looking one way, and then getting the rocks coming another way. I mean, there's a lot of thinking going on, and I think the challenge with that is we haven't seen a reason to support that Marcos should be that smart or should be that connected. I mean, I don't mind that he is. We haven't had a lot of time. We've only had these little statements. He seems more of the angry rebel than the, super smart strategic master. I may have missed, a couple of things with that, but I think that's one thing with Marcos. It's like, I like him. I mean, I like the idea of this new big bad. I just don't know if I totally believe he should be the one behind this type of plan. This is like a Mao type level of thinking of plans, somebody really that connected. But if we get to go in, maybe that's the big lean in for next season, is to go in and see, oh my God, this guy really is like, he's more than just this outlying rebel.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap this up, because I think we did a pretty good job here. I was going to bring up a few other things, but not really. I mean, I want to mention what Hydra said here. I missed the last part of your name. The Ghost Knife of Calypso is the name that they gave.
Yes.
Like, come on. That's badass right there when you hear stuff like that. Also, Peter saying whatever Sorala says, the kind of almost foreshadowing. I don't like people that throw rocks.
When they're up looking at the shooting stars, on the roof. And
Mark from Enchantment of Eternity saying, I thought Marco made some good points about the inner suppressed the belt in season 4. Yeah. Like, again, for sure. He has points. I just, everybody thinks they're right. And that's so much how the real world works, is even the villains that we have here think they are the good guys. And sometimes the good guys are bad, and sometimes the bad guys aren't as bad as we think. And just, it's all about how far they take it. And it's just such a great reflection of our world, and how no matter how far we reach into the galaxy, we make little steps towards greater peace and understanding of each other. And it's going to be something that, you know, in real life is going to be there for as long as we are. And I love that this show is able to take that. There's a great big space adventure and make it still about what really being a human being is. And it's about, you know, other people and our associations with them, and just, can we become better than what we tell ourselves we are, like, or you know what I mean? Like what we're supposed to be or what we think we're supposed to be. Can we get past all that? Can we become something else and something different and better? And as Belinda says, in season 5, it's going to be lit.
Oh yeah,
lit as fuck is I believe what she wrote, and I believe it. I think season 5 is going to be as good as season 2, if you ask me, because the setup for this is just gonna, it feels like it's just gonna pop off like crazy. And while as of like now, I feel like I said, there's parts about it that drag down for me, like the Belters and the side characters. It's just the beginning, and I have to keep reminding myself every time I go, I would rather have a season of The Expanse be all right for The Expanse, but even all right for The Expanse is 1,000 times better than most of the drivel and the dreck that's out there right now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And even shows that I really like, even shows that we really like, this is way better than those shows.
Oh yeah, by far.
There's shows out there that are on par with The Expanse as far as quality, writing, characters, worlds. You know, only things to me that come close are like Better Call Saul, you know, stuff like that has like these great universes and great writing and things that matter. I'm trying to think of other things that come close right now. Mr. Robot was one of them.
Mr. Robot, extremely well done. I like the consistency of story more in this, but
yeah, I have not seen season 4 of Mr. Robot.
Okay,
I watched the first episode.
I will say nothing then.
But up until season 4, I thought it was like one of the best things out here, like The Expanse, Better Call Saul, Mr. Robot. I feel like those were the top 3 shows on television. Whenever they were out, they were the best show that was out playing at the time. And I can't wait for The Expanse season 5. I know it's probably going to be about 10 months or so before the next one comes out. But oh no, like I was going to say favorite moments, least favorite moments, but I don't really care about the least favorite moments. My favorite moment was the end. Yeah, with Ashford. I want to say a very close second was the look by Amos as he looked at Mercury getting ready for one of the greatest beatdowns that we never got to see. And I am completely fine with not seeing that beatdown, because
you don't need to. That's all you need is the vision. You need that look, and you know what's going to happen. Yeah, I love those 2 moments. The other one that I would say is Naomi's landing on the planet when they first leave the ship and come out. I thought that was so beautifully done and really set the tone for everything else that was to come. I thought that was a beautiful done moment. But yeah, I'm excited about 5 because, again, we're going to be back in space. There's more things going on at a bunch of different levels. It's the tension's going to be wrapped up. I love the pacing. And as I said, I don't know Marco. We've just had a little bit of introduction with Marcos and so on. So I'm excited to know more about the character. Again, I'm limited by the very limited amount that I know about the character. And because we only had really those couple of scenes of him talking, but everybody talks shit. You know, I want to see people do things. In the chat, both Pedar, Belinda, Mark, everybody is talking that Marcos is one of the more brilliant villains in the books and the show. So I'm excited to see that. A show is own, you know, a hero is always compared to the protagonist is always compared to the antagonist. You know, you have to have a strong antagonist in order to have the better arc for the protagonist, or in this, protagonists. So, and I think at this point, you know, this team, this group, the crew of the Rossi has been mowing through every obstacle that's been set in their way. If you want to give them a bigger challenge, you got to up the stakes. And so I'm excited where their show's going to go. And you know it's going to be great because every season so far, like you said, characters, writing, depth, all brilliantly done.
Yeah, I didn't know how I was going to structure this. Like I said, we were going to be improvising and free flowing, and I had like, oh, we're going to talk about this, that, and the other. And I think by talking about all the characters, we've done everything that we really needed to do. And talk about plot and everything else, and favorite moments or least favorite moments. And I think that, yeah, I am looking forward to season 5 now more than ever after having this discussion. It's nice to see everybody in the chat talking about it and reminding me of things that I forgot and bringing up great points about the books and what's coming up, things that I forgot. Just talking to you about it and seeing things from a different perspective, because I'm in my little microcosm here. And if it wasn't in the comment section of my own videos, I don't really know what everybody's talking about. In fact, I purposely didn't watch Mark's and yours video just so I can watch it after this.
Yeah.
So that
I do the same things. I'll watch your guys' stuff often after I do mine because I want to get my own thoughts, but then I'm like, but what are you guys thinking about?
Yeah.
That's what I love about doing these live stream bits.
Yeah, I completely intend to, Mark, I completely intend to watch your guys' live stream and give it a like and a retweet out there for everybody to watch now that this is over. Because I didn't want any other influences. I wanted to just be like, be yourself. Make sure you don't have anybody else's like influences until after you're done with yours. But I want to thank you for being here. I really loved doing this. I was so nervous before it started, and now I feel so much more relaxed. And because my first group live stream or multi-person live stream was on your channel, and and for Agents of Shield, and now I've broken the seal on this, and I don't know why I used that analogy.
It's because the one you wanted to use is out of date now. I know exactly where you're going from. So yeah, can't do this. We all got to grow up, Rob. We got to evolve too, just like everyone else.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks everybody in the chat for coming and leaving your great comments. Peter and Belinda and Mark and Devra and Hydra Lysk. Is that what your name was? I can't remember if that was in there. I'm sure I'm forgetting other people on there. They're the ones that I saw the most in here. I can't wait for season 5 to come back. Hopefully we can do something like this next time season 5 rolls around. Hopefully we can do something when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes around as well.
Oh, we're definitely doing something when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes around. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how to end this, so I'm just going to say thanks everybody so much for being here. For those of you who watch this not live, thank you so much for watching this. Go over to D's Reviews. Here, go tell everybody about your channel.
There you go. Hi, I'm D. You catch me on D's Reviews. I'm right in the middle of doing back half of season 10 of The Walking Dead. We'll be doing Westworld season 3 next month. It comes out March 15th. And then, like we just mentioned, the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this summer. Don't have a lot going on because I've got a lot of different things, a lot of different fires right now. But as more stuff comes up, I will let things know in the chat. And you can always catch me Twitter, Instagram, right here at Darren Jakes. And Rob, thanks so much for having me on here. Love chatting Expanse. So another opportunity to do that with you was awesome.
Yes, definitely check out his Walking Dead reviews. I don't watch Walking Dead anymore, but I watch his reviews of it just so I can find out what's going on, because you have the best recaps and reviews for that, for everything that you do. There's a great passion for what you want to talk about, and I feel like I've watched the episodes after I've watched your reviews, so I don't need to spend that time on Sundays watching Walking Dead anymore.
Just catch the high points here.
Yeah. And you always, sometimes you make me want to check it out. I haven't, but I will probably. I've given up on that show, but I'm glad that your review's out there for it. And yeah, check out all his other stuff. He does great Mr. Robot reviews as well. Fear the Walking Dead's done though, right? You don't do.
Oh no, God, I will no, God no. I had to X that. I had to X that hard. It show's so bad.
Okay, so with that being said, and not talking about the Expanse anymore before we keep rambling, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye. If I can get up to end the broadcast. Yes, end the broadcast.